Good afternoon. It is indeed a great privilege to introduce the Lieutenant Governor of Ontario, the Honourable David C. Onley, to the fall graduating class of 2011. Over the years, Carleton University has recognized many distinguished individuals for their contributions for the betterment of society. And today, Carleton honors Lieutenant Governor Onley for his social justice, humanitarian, and charitable work for and with people with disabilities. Lieutenant Governor Onley is well known throughout Ontario as a disability rights advocate, as a leader, and as a role model. His honor was the first person with a visible disability to be the news anchor for City TV in Toronto. And he is the first person with a physical disability to become the Lieutenant Governor of Ontario. His record of involvement with people with disabilities goes back many decades and includes work with charitable organizations such as the Ontario March of Dimes, which provides supports and services to people with disabilities, and Variety Village, a facility which offers integrated sports and recreation programs for disabled and non-disabled persons alike. In addition to his involvement with these and other organizations, his honor has been involved with disability advocacy organizations such as the Canadian Foundation for Physically Disabled Persons, the Centre for Independent Living in Toronto, and the Accessibility Advisory Standards Council of Ontario, of which he is the chair. In recognition for his work on behalf of people with disabilities, Lieutenant Governor Onley has received numerous awards, including the Rick Hansen Award for Excellence. He has been inducted into the Terry Fox Hall of Fame, and he's been awarded 9 honorary degrees. In his spare time, Lieutenant Governor Onley is a science and technology enthusiast with a special interest in space travel. His honor is also known as a man of faith and a man with a great sense of humor. But then, anyone who started their broadcasting career as a weather reporter and remains a die-hard Toronto Maple Leaf fans would have to have a strong dose of both. There is no doubt that the cumulative effect of disability activism and on the part of Lieutenant Governor and others have led to great opportunities for people with disabilities in this province, including greater access to post-secondary education. And excellent examples of that can be found here at Carleton University. Over the years, the Supports and Services program has grown from approximately 12 students to now over 1,000 students a year are receiving supports and services through the Paul Manton Centre. In closing, it is important to note that while people with disabilities continue to face various attitudinal and structural barriers, there have been many societal changes, and these have arising from activities which were initiated, developed, nurtured, and championed by individuals such as Lieutenant Governor Onley. Madam Vice Chancellor, in recognition for the outstanding contribution to the advancement of disability issues, I request you confer the degree of Doctor of Laws, honoris causa, upon the Honourable David C. Onley, Lieutenant Governor of Ontario.
Can't applaud before I award the degree. We got to do that first. By virtue of the authority vested in me by the Faculty Senate and the Board, I hereby confer upon you the degree of Doctor of Laws, honoris causa, with all the rights, privileges, and responsibilities thereto pertaining. And now, please applaud.
President O'Reilly, Runta, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much. It is a privilege to receive the degree of Doctor of Laws, honoris causa, and become a member of the Carleton family. I wish to thank, first of all, the Senate Honorary Degrees Committee for its selection, and I'm grateful to the members of the Carleton community for placing my name in nomination in the first place. Now, I know there's a question that everyone is asking in their minds, and I think I should address it first. Is this the scooter that Rick Mercer crashed in his show with me? The answer is no. It is still being repaired. And out of the entire transaction, I got great publicity and a brand new scooter. And I want to thank you for your tolerance as a Toronto Maple Leaf fan, allowing me to speak here. It is a peculiar affliction that one has as a Leaf fan. I was at an event recently, and the mayor of Sarnia, who is also a Leaf fan, explained it this way. He actually didn't explain it, he just gave an example of the peculiarity, and that is he had suddenly announced that while he hoped and planned to live many, many more years, he had arranged for the Toronto Maple Leafs to be the pallbearers at his funeral, which caught everyone off guard until he said he wanted to have it that way just so that he could be let down one last time by the... To which I can only say, from my heart, go Sens go. As I prepared today's remarks, I was drawn to the well-known quote by Carleton's first president, Henry Marshall Tory, who said, "I learned very early in life the lesson that it is people, not buildings, that make up an institution. And if we put our hearts to it, we can do something worthwhile." Well, clearly, something very worthwhile has been achieved and maintained at this university since its founding in 1942. And just as clearly, you have put your hearts into it in your studies and your exams and have become graduates of Canada's capital university. So for this, I offer my congratulations. Well done and well deserved. But as you move forward in life, I believe that you will need to keep that phrase of Dr. Tory's and that philosophy as a part of who you are as a person, because it also means coming to grips with the world that you are graduating into. And that means we must focus on the economy. The bad news is that you are entering a very tough labor market. In the short term, this is a difficult reality. The good news is this: it has happened before, but the subsequent positive results were beyond imagination. 80 years ago, and well into the 1930s, one graduating class after another in Canada emerged into the appalling economic conditions of the Great Depression. The fact that our slowly improving economy today is nowhere near the economic pain of 1929 is small comfort if you don't already have a job. But when you consider that it takes 15 to 20 years to build and develop a career into its most prosperous form, history provides an important lesson. It is instructive to note that the boom times of the 1950s, the greatest era of prosperity in the 20th century, had as its executives and its managers the very same students who graduated during the Depression. The world back then required a new way of thinking, a new way of doing things, and that generation of students came through, as I have absolutely no doubt you will too. Think about it. From the suffering of the Great Depression, we developed a fair and compassionate society. From the tragedies of World War II, we built a prosperous, industrialized nation. From immigrant experiences of persecution and famine, we constructed a pluralistic society in which individuals from every corner of the planet can live side by side in harmony. And we achieved all of this without the upheaval and bloodshed that all too often accompanies social change in other parts of the world. I believe that as we work through global economic uncertainties, new and innovative ways of teaching, of doing business, running government, and enhancing culture can and will be developed by you and by your generation. So we return then to Henry Tory's quote on success, because that's really what it is. A quote that can be framed into the simple words, people and passion. With people, it comes down to attitude, whether it is dealing with disabled people who look different, or dealing with people who speak differently, True success in life comes when we see and we work with people as they really are and not what they appear to be at first glance. Consider for a moment that you are interviewing someone for a job, but you can only see them from the waist down and you are not allowed to ask their name. If you rejected the one-legged person only because of his one leg, you might have missed hiring Terry Fox. If you rejected someone only because they were in a wheelchair, you might have missed hiring Rick Hansen. If you rejected the fluently bilingual woman only because she was in a racing wheelchair, you may have missed hiring Canada's greatest female Paralympic athlete of all time, Chantal Petitclerc. And if you passed on the man in the power wheelchair who also needed a computer to speak on his behalf, you might have missed hiring the person considered to be the most intelligent person alive today on the planet Earth, Dr. Stephen Hawking. So it is important not to prejudge people. The lesson of not prejudging another person based on apparent, and I say apparent, intellectual limitations as well, was taught to me by a friend of mine named Bob Morris, a retired Toronto high school teacher who is well in the way of writing his memoirs. At the start of his career in the late 1960s, he had a grade 11 English class in Toronto called Man in Society. Now the class was for students, and this is according to the syllabus, who had no plans to attend post-secondary education. In other words, they were deemed not academically capable of pursuing college or university. Even so, in this pre-computer, pre-internet, pre-satellite TV world, Bob decided to teach this class about the then brand new concept of mass media. He also decided to begin the class with a quote from the guru of mass media, the often opaque and great Canadian Marshall McLuhan. And the quote was this: "We do not know who first discovered water, but we're pretty sure it was not a fish." Well, there was a student named Jerry McCullough, and Jerry immediately put his hand up because he simply didn't get the point. And Bob suggested that they leave it overnight and that Jerry go home and think about it, and they would discuss it in class the next day. Lo and behold, the next day, Jerry, uncharacteristically, was the first person in the class, and he was sitting at the front, and he practically had his hand in the air. He was so excited to give the answer. And Jerry said this, when asked by Bob what the meaning of the quote was: "The fish's environment is water. It is his worldview. The thing we are least conscious of is our own context, the environment in which we live and move. And so the fish would be the last one on earth to, quote unquote, discover water because it's virtually all he knows." And with a big smile, he sat down. Bob was quite astonished and asked him how on earth he came up with that answer, because it was so good. And Jerry said it was really quite simple. "I went home and I phoned Dr. McLuhan." And he talked to me, and he kept talking to me for over half an hour, and he kept asking me questions and explaining it to me until he was convinced that I understood it. And to which I say, well, good on Jerry. Good on Dr. McLuhan for taking the time to speak with Jerry, obviously someone who would not be a candidate to be in his postgraduate studies. And good on Bob Morris. It would have been very easy for him to have dismissed Jerry as a kid who wouldn't be going far unless he could have skipped over knowing about Marshall McLuhan. Bob did not form a value judgment on Jerry, and I suspect 45 years later, Jerry has done very, very well indeed. So we can learn a lesson from an intellectual giant and from a great teacher, and we should never be afraid to listen to people like Jerry. We can all learn from each other. If respecting people is the first lesson, the second and last is passion, and we can learn that from a man named Roger Crawford. Despite being born with only 2 fingers on each hand and shortened arms, he not only became an NCAA tennis star, but then became the first disabled person to become a certified coach with the United States Tennis Association. At age 51, he is now a motivational speaker. Listen to his words. He says, "The only difference between you and me is that you can see my handicap, but I cannot see yours. We all have them. When people ask me how I've been able to overcome my physical handicaps, I tell them I haven't been able to overcome anything at all. With 2 fingers on each hand, I've simply learned what I cannot do, such as play the piano or eat Chinese food with chopsticks. But far more importantly, I have learned what I can do, and then I do what I can with all my heart and all my soul. So let me conclude by saying, your future success will depend not just on what you have learned here, although that is very important, but on being people of character, creativity, and intellectual curiosity, putting people first and living with passion. Those traits have brought you to this point, and they will help you throughout the rest of your life and truly achieve something worthwhile. Congratulations on your success so far. Thank you for bestowing this honorary degree upon me, and thank you for allowing me to share in this very special day. And in the name of Her Majesty the Queen, my very best wishes to future success for each and every one of you.